Hi, welcome to the Ruby and Pearls Knitting Podcast. My name's Leah. I'm coming to you from West Wales in the UK, where I live with my partner and our two dogs, Ruby and Pearl. Today is a traditional format podcast that I really wanted to film because next week I would like to film a planning video, but more on that later. You can find me as Leah Amber Knits on Ravelry and Instagram. I will put details on the things that I'm talking about down below. And I think this is just going to be a quick catch-up video for you. I'm not wearing any knitwear today because there is something I would like to sort of try on camera and in a sort of live kind of manner and figure out whether I'm going to proceed with it or not. But I'm very excited to be here and chatting to you about my knitting again. I'd love it if you'd leave me a comment letting me know what you're working on right now. And yeah, let's jump right in. I have one finished object since last time we spoke. And you haven't seen this before. This is a children's jumper. I'm going to show it to you. Okay. This is called the Quiet Season Sweater, and it is by a designer that goes by the name of Vitalina Crafts. I have been chatting on and off with her for a little while. She also lives in Wales, and she put a test call out for this, and I've noticed that if I am planning to knit something for somebody else, if I do it as part of a test knit, I'm much more likely to actually finish it. I think I discussed this on this channel in the past, that I make a terrible habit of promising people knitwear that I then don't end up making because I run out of steam or the dopamine hit has kind of left me. So what I do now, whenever I plan to make something for somebody, I don't tell them anymore. I cast on and I tell them either when it's almost finished or when it's completely finished, and that works much better for me. It feels like a lot less pressure for me, and with this one I decided to do it as part of a test knit, so there's even more sort of likelihood that I'm going to finish it. And it is a sweater for my 5-year-old niece, and I knit it in James C. Brett Emotions in the shade Happy. And this is a very basic, simple top-down drop shoulder sweater that starts with a trapezoid on the back. You then pick up for the fronts, shape the neck hole, join at the underarm, knit in the round, and pick up sleeves, knit them down, pick up neckline and knit that upwards. I think I knit the whole thing to pattern. Yeah, I think I knit this all to pattern. I tried my best to line up the colours on either side of the neckband and to get the sleeves to be somewhat similar. It seems to be an awfully long sweater. This is kind of the length that I would knit my sweater from the underarm, so I was very surprised. Some of my sweaters are actually shorter than this, as in the measurement from here down. But I'm hoping that this means that she can wear it for quite a long time. So I need to ship this off to her, ready for autumn and winter. But yeah, really pleased that I finished this, and I knit on this and finished it extremely fast because I actually caught a summer cold last week. So I was in bed for a little while, but I was well enough to knit stocking stitch. So that is what happened last week. Let's move on to whips. I have two things to show you that you've seen before and two that you haven't seen before. I showed you this last week in the early stages. This is a self-drafted sweater in Serdar jewelspun that I made, slightly inspired by the pentapillar pullover that I made, that I showed you last time, I think. And basically it is a split kind of sweater. So well, at the minute it hasn't got sleeves. You knit each quarter separately, but you join them as you go as well. So I think I knit this on 4.5mm needles. It's about an 18 stitch gauge, a very sort of standard Aran weight. And I started with one of the back panels and then moved on to the front and then did the other back and then the other front and joined them all as I went along. And unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to finish this piece. I'm going to try it on just sort of to demonstrate. And I don't know if it's just the colour of this piece, but I'm not 100% happy with how these have played together. Not 100% happy with how the design feels. I would have liked more of a colour change maybe, but now I'm looking at it, there's an end there, on camera, it does look quite, looks quite nice. It's just, I haven't had the desire to finish this at all. I haven't had the desire to put any sleeves on this whatsoever. So let me just show you there. I'm quite pleased with how it worked out in terms of my maths, but I think there's almost like a bit of a diagonal slant happening here. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure about this. So I think what I'm going to do, this is going to go in a dormant stage. There's no needles attached. I haven't graded the sleeves yet, so there's nothing to, you know, there's nothing saying that I have to continue this right now. And I'm going to look at this again in a few months' time maybe, because yeah, it seems to be pulling at a diagonal, which is weird, and not what I was expecting. But yeah, I like the concept, but it's just not quite worked out. And I think the sort of headspace I'm in at the moment, I'm just better off following other people's patterns right now, which is unfortunate because now would be a really good time to create a design that will be sort of a autumn-winter release. And if the inspiration strikes me, then I'll definitely do that. But I think for the most part, I just need to follow other people's designs, and, you know, enjoy my craft in that way. So yeah, I'm not 100% happy with this, but I'm not completely unhappy either. So I'm not going to unravel it, but it is going to go and sit somewhere for a little while. But I've said on here 4.5mm needles. So if I decide to pick it back up, I can check back in my own video and go from there. I think the other reason why I'm not 100% happy with this, and this is a bit of a side tangent, I've discussed this a few times on this channel before, but if you're fairly new, you might not know this, that I have had a bit of a journey when it comes to my yarn and fibre choices. And yeah, I'm just going to go over this briefly, if you don't mind. If you've been here for a while, you can skip ahead for a few minutes. But I started knitting when I was very, very young. I learnt when I was 4. My mum taught me to knit, and she is a very keen knitter of natural fibres. And so from a young age, and from as a beginner knitter, I was really keen to knit with wool and alpaca and silk and really nice, high quality, ethical, natural fibres. And I did that for quite a long time. On and off, I knit as a child, and then I started knitting on a more daily basis maybe 7 years ago. And when I started knitting again, I very much jumped straight back into those kind of fibres. And there are a couple of reasons why I've deviated away from that, and I just wanted to quickly go over that to explain to you why that has happened. So initially I was knitting sweaters with beautiful wool, alpaca, silk, those kind of fibres. They were fairly expensive, as you probably will know. And 2 years ago we got a mortgage on our first home, and so my expenses shifted quite dramatically, and spending loads of money on knitting was kind of not the priority anymore and not a possibility anymore. Now I know that there are always sales, there is drops yarn, there is the opportunity to still work with natural fibres, absolutely, and I carried on doing so very much until I had a bit of a moth infestation. I had a few moths, they laid some eggs, I had a bit of a freak out worrying about it destroying all my knitwear. So at that point I decided I was just going to knit a few things that are completely animal fibre free, so that in the event of, you know, having a really bad moth problem, I'd still have a few nice sweaters that weren't touched. That was kind of my mindset. And at the same time I'd also started looking at how many sweaters I had. Now I'd already started gifting a lot of my sweaters that I didn't wear, because I don't actually like owning too much clothing, too many items of clothing. I'll get a bit overwhelmed if I have, you know, a vast wardrobe full of sweaters. So I started gifting some of them. I gave loads of them to my mum, I gave some to my friend. But you get to a point where, first of all, the people you've gifted them to, they've got a fair few sweaters already. And I am a little bit limited by how many people I can give these things to, because if it is beautiful natural fibre, first of all, I've spent a fair amount of money on it, so I don't want to just gift it for no reason to just about anyone. And then they'd have to be a similar size to me and willing and knowledgeable in taking care of wool. So I was very limited by how many people I could give these things to. And it also felt a bit silly spending, you know, between 50 and 80 pounds on a sweater that I might knit in 10 days and then just give it away, as well as, you know, my time has gone into it as well. So the combination of worrying about moths, cost, and how many people can I actually give these to without, you know, being totally out of pocket and without them ending up in hands of people who don't know how to care for them. All of these have sort of led me to more budget friendly and less animal fibre based yarns. And I've been on a real mission to find the yarns that I really enjoy. And 100% acrylic is not the one. It's what I'm trying to come to. This Sirdar jewelspun is really beautiful coloured yarn, but 100% acrylic is just not nice to wear for me personally. As someone who started off, I've kind of gone the opposite way of most people, because I think most people start with acrylics and then move into wools and find the nice merinos and things like that. I've gone kind of the opposite way, but what I will say is 100% acrylic is not for me. I prefer a cotton acrylic blend. I also quite like a wool acrylic blend. I also really like things that I can put comfortably in the washing machine because of my lifestyle. I have 2 dogs, we go for walks a lot, you know, they jump up and get excited and get things dirty. I'm smiling because Ruby's laying right there, batting a little eyelashes at me. So yeah, that is the other reason why this jewelspun slip over thing that I've started, that was supposed to be a sweater, may never become a thing. Speaking of another whip and a cotton acrylic blend, this is Drops Cotton Light. It is, it'll be hard to show on camera, it is a roughly 50-50 I think cotton acrylic blend, and it does not feel like a cotton acrylic blend. A few episodes ago I showed you something I made in Sirdar Stories, which was cotton acrylic, and this feels like just a cotton, or even like a cotton linen. It's really dry feeling. It's extremely inexpensive, and I think this might not be the one for me when it comes to cotton acrylic blends. I'm going back and forth as to whether I like it. So I haven't ripped this out yet because I'm not 100% sure. Plus, this involved stripes and cutting yarn. So if I rip this out, you know, it's not really going to become anything else. But I started making the Aros sweater by petiteknit. I've knit this before. I think I touched on it last time, but I'm trying to have a no-buy month. So I'm trying to go through my library and find things that patterns that I've already purchased. And I cast on the Aros sweater with these 3 colours of Drops Cotton Light, which is a DK weight yarn. It feels a bit like a heavy DK to me. The blue colour is actually more of a mint. This is looking very, very blue on camera, but I find that anything that is sort of on the blue to green scale always shows up a bit weird on camera. The Aros sweater is a striped top-down saddle shoulder sweater. So you start off with rapid increases on the front and the back. Let's see if I can show you that. There we are. Before you then do rapid increases in the sleeve. And it is a really beautiful fit, this type of construction. It is supposed to be a winter sweater, but I'm using cotton, so I decided to not do ribbing and rather do rolled edges. So on the sleeve, I knit the last stripe as normal, and then I think I knit, let's have a look, 5 rows on a much smaller needle and then bound off, and it's just created this cute little roll. So for the neckline I want to do something similar. I picked up stitches in this beigey colour, and I think I did 10 rows and then bound off, and it's got a roll. And I'm not 100% happy with how it feels when I try it on. The fit is a little bit weird. and I think it will probably block out. So I dropped this and I didn't work on it. I finished one sleeve and I thought, I'm not sure if I like this anymore. So I just kind of abandoned it. Worked on some other projects, but now that I'm pulling it out, I think I do want to finish this. I think this will be a very wearable, nice, easy sweater that can go on any setting in the washing machine. You can just chuck it in. So yes, Aros sweater. I am going to finish this guy. I'm going to work on it again. Next, we have a whip that I've shown you before. That is getting slow and steady progress. And it is my Patagonia Peaks by Maya Déglon from Maya Tinks. It is a test knit that I am making for her. And it's a beast. So this is a design inspired by Patagonia quarter zip fleeces. And as you can see, I haven't added the trim there yet because I'm not sure whether I'd actually like to put a zipper in. Maya has put press studs, so I'm going to leave that for now and decide later, which is quite unusual for me because normally I go back and do neck finishings quite early on because I think it just looks nicer to look at. Same thing, there's a pocket there, so that's why this is on hold. This has been slow progress for several reasons. The first reason is that this design is knit bottom up from here. So you cast on and you work the garter portion bottom up, including the collar. And it is extremely clever. Like when this comes out, you must buy this pattern and knit it because the way she gets you to shape the shoulder is unbelievable. I've actually made a bit of an error because I didn't watch the video. So you can see a line of stitches here on the shoulder, and that's actually supposed to be a 2-stitch line. So I'm going to crochet another line in there just to make it look more seamless, but I wasn't about to go back because the shaping bit for the shoulder, you have to do it in one go because otherwise you're going to get lost in the instructions. And I knew I would have had to rip the whole thing out otherwise. Maya knits this on in a boucle yarn held double, a sport weight boucle held double, which gives her an Aran weight, but because of the boucle, which works in a way a little bit like a mohair or a surrey, the gaps that get filled create a slightly thicker yarn and a thicker gauge. So I think the yoke is a 13-stitch gauge and the colour work from memory is either 14 or 14 and a half, something like that. So to me that is a chunky weight, and I knew that if I used a standard Aran I would probably have a very gappy fabric. So the way she gets you to do it is you cast on with Judy's Magic Cast On, you work this up, and then you use the remaining live stitches to work down. Now, I didn't do Judy's Magic Cast On because I'm not using a boucle or textured yarn, so it's really easy to pick up stitches, but I stalled massively on there because there was picking up stitches and increasing, and there was just a few things that I had to sort of concentrate on, and I wasn't really in a headspace to do that, so I was just working more on my stockinette kind of project. But I have now made some progress on the colour work, so I've got these 2 bands, I've got 2 more bands to go and then the body will be finished, and then I have to do the sleeves, but I have got till mid-October I think to finish this test knit, and I'm working on it really slowly because I don't want to lose steam, because chunky weight yarns really hurt my hands to knit on for too long, so I'm just doing little bits and pieces here and there, and it is puckering a little bit. Oh, the other reason why I was stalling on it is because this kind of colour work has quite long floats, so I had to set up a ladder back jacquard, and I've done that before. If you've never done ladder back jacquard, it is a really good technique to shorten your floats in the back without making them peek through the fabric, so I highly recommend. But I sort of had to, you know, wrap my head around how do I set this up again and where do I place my jacquard stitches. I can sort of show you here, for example, in this grey patch here, instead of catching the green floats, there is a additional stitch here of green, but you don't see that from the front because it's happening behind the fabric. It's a really clever technique, so you must look it up because it is really helpful for this kind of colour work. And yeah, this is going to be a oversized, thick, cozy piece to wear on dog walks. That is the plan for this. And I should probably tell you what yarn I'm using. So I decided to stash dive for this, and I'm really pleased that I actually found yarns in stash that really work colour wise, that I'm really pleased with, because quite often when I stash dive I end up not very happy with what I've picked, and then I end up not enjoying the project. This is Stylecraft's Special Chunky in the shade Bluebell. This is King Cole Subtle Drifter Chunky in this grey shade. This is King Cole Paradise Beaches held double in a white. And then the green is Shapier Scrumptious in a really light green colour, held with James C. Brett's Sugar Spun in a very neon-y green colour. I can't remember the colour names because I think I've removed the ball bands, but they are held together because these are 2 DKs. The white is 2 DKs, and then the grey and the purple are not Aran weight, chunky weight. So I'm going to see if I can try this on without popping. No, I'm not going to be able to try this on without popping stitches off, because I was going to try. I've never tried it on yet, but it's definitely big enough. So yeah, hopefully I can show you some more progress on this beast next time. And yeah, really, really excited. I think Maya's planning a DK weight version of this, so I'm going to be racing for that test knit as soon as it comes. Despite my no buy month, I bought one pattern and I am using Woolcraft Esteem DK for this pattern. This is a completely recycled fibre. It is cotton acrylic polyester, and it weirdly feels like wool. It doesn't feel like cotton acrylic. It's weird. I love exploring all these different cotton acrylic blends and finding out how different they feel. Like I said, the Drops Cotton Light is so different from for example, Serdar Stories. It has a totally different feel. This has a totally different feel again. And I am knitting the Fidalgo cardigan by Michelle from meeshyfrazzknits. She has a podcast as well, and I am nearly finished, so I'm going to try it on in a second and show you. I am absolutely obsessed with this pattern. I am definitely going to knit more of these. This is a worsted weight, but you can also use DK at a slightly looser gauge pattern. It is worked top down. It's a drop shoulder. I'm using 4mm needles for mine, and it is an all over broken rib pattern. So you start off with this on the back neck here, and you work a little bit of the button band, and then you put these on hold, and then you work the trapezoid for the back. Let me show you, like so. Once you reach this point here, you pick up for the fronts, you work a bunch of shaping in the front for the V-neck, and certain sizes also have decreases or increases at the underarm. I'm making size 4, so I don't have those. You then join the body, not in the round, you join it flat, but you know, you join it at the underarm and you work it all the way down, and then you pick up stitches and do the sleeves. And the button band is done at the same time. The ribbing is done with the same needle. You just need, if you're a magic loop kind of person, you need one single needle, that's it. I'm not a magic loop person, so I'm using short circulars for my sleeve. But it is such a good pattern, look at that. And what I'm really enjoying is this button band is really neat, and it's not a double knit button band, which I always sort of gravitate towards, but they are a pain in the neck to do after the fact, right? You knit the whole thing and then you've got this massive button band to do. I am quite quick compared to other knitters, I think, when it comes to these button bands, because I've had some people tell me it takes them weeks to complete, and I can smash a button band out in a day, but I really have to sit with it, and it's quite frustrating sometimes, especially if then you block it and you realise the gauge wasn't completely perfect. So being able to do this at the same time is just amazing. And she instructs you to put these little bulb stitch markers on when you're doing the buttonhole so that you've already got a spot perfectly matched for your buttons, which I think is amazing. So I just need to buy some buttons. I think the fit is wonderful. I think my sleeve turned out a little bit longer because my row gauge is slightly off. So once I completed all the decreases, my sleeve was actually already several centimetres longer. It looks completely perfect now, but I reckon it will probably lengthen a bit with blocking, but that's fine. I don't mind a sort of mid-hand sleeve, and I don't mind folding it up either. I knit it to pattern, I think, when it comes to the length, aside from removing a few rows after the last buttonhole. So if you look here, I don't know if I can show you, this here is where the last button is going to be attached. There was supposed to be, I think, 4 more rows, but I don't like it when the last button is quite far away from the bottom edge of the hem. I'm just working on the second sleeve, and then it's going to get blocked and it's going to get worn a lot. I think this is just it's so good. And I think the broken rib is really fun to knit because cardigans are a little bit off-putting, aren't they? Because there's so much purling to be done. But actually, with this kind of pattern, you knit the right side row, and on the wrong side row, you purl 3, knit 1. And weirdly, doing that makes the wrong side rows go faster and be more enjoyable. I'm just going to turn and show you the shoulder, which I just think is so good. I love everything about this pattern. I've seen Michelle's podcast where she sort of raves about her new pattern, and it's really nice because I think she absolutely deserves to rave about her pattern. It is wonderful. I think a lot of test knitters decided to knit another one, which is always a good sign. I am definitely knitting another one. I love this. I think it's so wearable. I think it's so beautiful. And yeah, it's a classic, simple minimalist design, but that's also fun to make. So highly recommend. I think what also helps, because I get lost a little bit on the body of items a lot of the time because it gets a little bit boring and monotonous, but the fact that you're just working a certain amount of rows before you put the next buttonhole in gives you like a target to work towards. It's a little bit like stripes, and that works really well. And similarly for the sleeve, you know, you've got your decreases underneath, which I think are also really neat. And I think for my size, I was decreasing every 7th round, which, you know, really kept the momentum going for me. So I'm really, really excited for this. I'm a little bit warm, so I'm going to take it off. But I am going to knit another one, I'm sure of it, probably quite soon. Which brings me to the final item to talk about in today's episode. So, as I mentioned a few times, I haven't been buying yarn and I haven't been buying patterns. I've been really good this month. I haven't even bought buttons for this yet. I've got some buttons in stash, but I'm not sure they work very well. So I'm holding off a little bit until next week, because next week is actually my birthday. And on my birthday, I've decided I am allowed to buy some yarn and some buttons and whatever I fancy, right? And I think, if everything goes to plan, next week on my birthday, I would like to film a autumn/winter knitting plans video. So I've been really inspired by Emily from Emily Knits. I have to mention her every episode, don't I? She recently made a planning video, and I really enjoy planning videos, and I've never made one because, much like Emily, I've always been a serial test knitter. I've also designed a few things, so I've never really known what the next 3 months will hold in terms of knitting for me at all. And at the moment, I've signed up to much fewer test knits. I've got the Patagonia Peaks on the go, and I've got one more to sign by Maya that I'm about to start, that I'm getting yarn for. I think that's coming very, very soon. It is a birthday gift from Emily, which she's kindly decided to purchase for me. So once I've got that yarn and I've got some birthday yarn, I would like to film a autumn winter knitting plans with slash yarn, and it's going to be for September, October, November, probably not including December. So really it's more of an autumn knitting plans video, because I would also like to do more knitting, festive knitting, and maybe knit a Christmas sweater this year, and maybe knit a few gifts if I feel like it. But I would really like to work through my sweater quantities that I have in stash at the moment, because I have destashed a lot of things, I have sold things, I've returned things, and I would just like to really dwindle down my stash to a very small amount, because I get a lot of joy out of planning and finding new patterns, and then I would really like to start purchasing the yarn for a pattern, knitting the pattern, and then moving on to the next project and be a bit more organised like that. So you can look out for a planning video very, very soon. If, you know, time gets away from me next week and my day turns out a little bit different than planned, which is possible, then it might not happen next week. But sometime soon there will be a planning video coming from me. So if you enjoy that kind of content, then please keep an eye out for that. I'm also thinking about doing a video on festive sweaters that aren't too Christmassy, because I would really like to have a Christmas sweater, but not something that screams Christmas, something that's a little bit more, I can wear it through December and January and it seems appropriate and it's wintry. That's kind of what I'm aiming for. So if that is something you're interested in, please let me know down below. I hope you've had a lovely time knitting and chatting with me today. And yeah, like I always say, if you'd like to talk, please message me on Instagram. I love chatting about knitting. And yeah, if you've enjoyed this content, please leave me a like, comment and subscribe. And I will see you very, very soon. Happy knitting. Bye-bye.